encourage your soul, enlighten your mind, and empower your faith. This is the Light Network.
You know what time it is, no matter where you've been. So let's do it again. Listen up and let the sun shine in. We've got soul training. Time to practice what you preach. Ooh, yeah. Yes, we do. We've got soul training.
And here's Daniel, Alan, and Joe.
Hello, dear listeners. Hope you're doing well. I understand that we are going to be reaching a whole new audience with an opportunity that we've been giving with the Light Network and Brother Robert Hatfield. We are excited about that. If you are not familiar with who we are or who Soul Training is, we're going to do a short introduction. My name's Alan Jones. And
I didn't know it was going to be this formal.
Mellow Tones Jones over there.
So we've got Alan, who kind of, to introduce you guys to how this goes. Typically, Alan starts us off. He gives some little funny story, usually about candy or driving a school bus.
Like that.
Yeah. And then I am Joe, or Big Show. You'll hear me referred to as that sometimes. I should shut up and just record. I'm the producer here. Daniel is what is Daniel? He's our subject matter expert.
I'd say Daniel is, he's like
What is Daniel? That's really the question, right?
He's an academician.
Okay. That's not a word, but that's what...
he's in residence.
I think so. So that's that for the folks out there. We call them the people sometimes.
Are you for the people?
I'm for the people. And we're actually going to talk a little bit about lots of folks who would like to be for the people, or they tell you that they will.
Who are they?
That would be politicians. I've never met a politician that was against the people, if you asked them.
Really? I had a friend of mine tell me one time he don't know how he lost an election. He said, everybody I talked to, so they voted for me. Before we talk about politics, I want to talk about hidden talents. Daniel, what's your hidden talent that nobody knows? Anything that you'd like for people to know?
My hidden talent?
Hidden talent.
Well, I don't know. I'm pretty good at making puns. I can fly a plane.
Well, that's what I was hoping you'd say.
Yeah.
A lot of people, even in our little community or in our congregation, are not aware that you're a pilot. I don't know how I discovered it. Maybe you had a shirt on once, or maybe I saw your driver's license laying around when I was trying to get your Social Security number. I can't remember, but
right, yeah, but next to my credit card.
So what kind of plane can you fly? Like, what are you rated?
I can do single engine planes.
Not like a F-16, like a Hornet or Top Gun?
No, I cannot do that.
Can you fly a Little Bird helicopter?
A helicopter is, in fact, not a plane.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a helicopter.
Mm-hmm.
Really? I didn't.
But how does this...
Okay, what's your hidden talent?
Hidden talent. I'm a musician. That's not so much hidden. Apparently, I'm a decent pickleball player.
Well, that's what I was getting to.
Right.
I heard that you're like just a beast.
I'm not. I did win. My brother and I won.
Put a beat down on somebody.
Now, on the pickleball court, they call them the big deal.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's good. Yeah, I heard they smoked some people.
We did. But I'm waiting to hear how this...
Oh, my hidden... You're not going to ask what my hidden
What's
talent...
your hidden talent? Small talk, I think.
I can pop my shoulder blades out of joint. I actually had my own page in my senior yearbook where I was hidden. Another boy could turn his eyelids inside out, and I could flip out my shoulder blades. That's the only hidden talent I've got. Really impressive.
Was that useful in life?
Let's see.
They stop you going through airport security and stuff?
I can dislocate my shoulder and pop it back in.
How long did you date your wife? Was that one of your pickup lines
No.
with her? Hey, bet you can't do this.
Well, she would just, didn't know what to think about me.
Yeah,
I think
4
months to the day. We went out and got married 4 months to the day.
Wow.
But I don't know. Just she's still crazy about me, I hear. So,
but anyhow,
how our hidden talents are related to kind of like what you said about politics. There's so many things hidden in politics that I think we're all still learning. Politicians they're great. The average ones, our average and above, are great persuaders. That there's a lot of things. We don't like hidden agendas. So their hidden talent may be convincing you to vote for them before you even realize what you're voting for.
Yeah. And so
I see how that it transitioned.
yeah, it only took 5 minutes.
Well,
I think what we're getting at is we're getting close to election season, and what we're going to do today is kind of go over like what's the Christian view or actions that should be taken by Christians during this time of year, because it is not everybody's favorite time of year, mine included. All the yard signs are out, and you can't turn on a TV without seeing the political ads and the mudslinging and whatnot. But it's a big deal. Elections are. Not every country has this responsibility. We're blessed to be able to do this, whether it's for city council, state representatives, on up to like federal appointments, and presidential elections. There's a bunch happening right now. So what is our responsibility as Christians during this election season? That's what I want to talk about.
That's a huge question. And I think our responsibility begins with understanding our true citizenship. Philippians 3:20 says our citizenship is in heaven. When Jesus stands before Pilate and he's being questioned by him, he plainly says in John 18, verse 36, that my kingdom is not of this world. So we have to recognize that while we have an allegiance to our earthly country, for us, it's America. We are listened to in a lot of the world, so we have listeners that American politics are not going to be chief on their mind, but our number one citizenship is in heaven. So the way that we engage with politics or anything about our earthly country has to be done in a way that reflects our true citizenship. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. Now, with that in mind, there are those that come and approach this from all different angles. Some people are going to say, well, Christians, because our citizenship is in heaven, we really shouldn't be engaged in earthly politics at all. And that's fine. I tend to believe that we should engage. It's okay to engage in earthly politics as long as we're doing it in a way that reflects our true loyalty. And here's kind of why that is. Jeremiah, when he was warning the people of Judah about their new life in captivity, what was going to happen, and they were going to be going to Babylon, and he was telling them, listen, when you get to Babylon, engage with the city. Build a life in the city. Build your farm, build your house, do that, and work for the good of the city where you are. Jeremiah 29 verse 7 says, seek the welfare of the city where I have sent you into exile, and pray to the Lord on its behalf, for in its welfare you will have welfare. All right, so for us, do we want America to do well? Absolutely, we should want America to do well, because we're going to benefit if America does well. The church in America is going to benefit when America does well. So we should actively work for the good of our host country, as it were.
I was listening to what Daniel was saying, and something that popped out to me in my mind is that engagement. I agree totally, and I mean, the three of us, we're not going to agree on everything. But I think sometimes we forget that we need to exercise our freedom, but we can do so in a way that reflects Christ, and yet we can still be civil about it. And I know I don't want to get off on a tangent, but this is not, it's political, but a few years ago in our country, it was kind of a thing to burn an American flag. And that really frustrated me. That just made me mad. And I coached girls basketball with an older gentleman who had served our country in the Postal Service, also as a part in the National Guard, but also what he called regular Army. He had served a significant amount of time in the regular Army, and I came in one day at practice, and I was just fuming, about people burning our flag, and he was much, much older than me. He pulled me to the side, and he said, Alan, he said, I disagree with burning a flag. And he said, you do too. He said, you're not going to burn the flag, neither am I. But he said, I served our country so that if somebody wanted to, they could. And when he said that to me, that gave a whole new meaning of freedom to me. So that reminded me that as a Christian that we need to engage, whether it's politics, whether it's our job, whether it's the grocery store, but always be doing good, and being fruitful. And I'll circle back around to it. If you're listening, you can go ahead. For me, you can turn to John 15, verses 1 through 17, and we'll talk about fruit bearing just in a few minutes. But, Joe's right, an election season is coming our way, and the older I've tried to get and mature as a Christian is I'm going to engage, and I'm going to monitor and all those things, and I'm going to cast my vote probably. But I'm going to first and foremost try to find ways to be a fruit bearer for Christ. I'm not going to change up, if you allow me to use a metaphor, I'm not going to change my game up because of whatever season it's in. But I do, I'm a public school teacher, and, I work with a lady who's a classmate of mine, and we talked about some of the things that concern us in public school. And she said, I told her, can you imagine if we all just said we're all going home? People who follow God, we're all just going home. We're done with this. Can you imagine what the public sector will turn into? So it's an engagement, to Daniel's point, is very important. We need to realize, just as the military veteran told me, that we too have freedoms. We need to exercise those through our engagement.
So you brought up something, and it's a little bit of an aside, but I think it's worth going to. There is this anger that has been in our culture in America here, and I guess, you see it a little bit on the news in other countries too, so it might be worldwide even. Daniel, you're the world traveler. I haven't seen it much. I stay around the U.S. most of the time. But there's just an anger. If you can't disagree peacefully with someone now. It's like if you don't 100% agree with somebody, it's just the worst. You're the worst person ever.
Right.
You're terrible. What? As Christians, we can't be like that.
No, we can't. And I think one of the ways that we can contribute to society is when we engage with people in public discourse, that we set an example in listening and engaging respectfully. That when we do engage with people that have a differing political point of view, or even have a differing religious point of view, or a different sports team, or whatever, the way we treat people that disagree with us says a lot about who we are, and it will say a lot about our side to the people that we're engaging with. And so I'm not against people engaging in whatever you want to do with your social media, the statements that you want to make and whatever, that's your choice. But make sure the way you're presenting yourself and the way you're presenting your side is with respect and love, and that's all coded in that. If you're going to advocate for your favorite politician, fine, do so in a Christ-like, loving way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, and to me, I'm not going to put anything about any political candidate, whether local or a national level candidate, just because that's ammunition somebody has that might not even know me that well.
You may be closing the door unnecessarily.
And closing the door. Because most of my posts are about, the podcast here, or children, or my children, not everybody's children, my children, or South Green Street, where we all attend a church.
Yeah.
One post about a political candidate could wreck everything you've been doing, you know? So I think we kind of need to be intentional. If you're going to post something, I'd be very careful about what it is. And then, for Pete's sakes, don't get into the arguments with people in the comments section. because I don't know if y'all know this out there, but we can all read it. It's out there.
It's true.
We can all read it.
Well, I was just, the other, and I'm kind of over the top on some things. I worry about the legal side. I worry about libel, libel.
Mm-hmm.
I think you need to be careful about things you say because, like you said, it's there, and people can read the fruit that you're putting out. Our friend, I call him great, but the great Steve Higginbotham is just an excellent preacher, speaker, writer. And a few years ago, Steve, he put out an article called Facebook Etiquette, and that was before all the other social media things started happening.
I think we did an episode on that.
We did. Yeah, with Steve. And so that for me, when I find myself kind of wading out in deep water, if I get the urge that I want to post something politically, whether it's on a local level or national level, I kind of revisit Steve's article, because the Facebook Etiquette, that encourages me.
So we're going to have a break right fast, and I'm going to mention, we mentioned early on, we did kind of new introductions to new folks. We are now part of the Light Network. Those of you all that are our regular listeners, check out the Light Network. There's several podcasts there that will...
They'll encourage your soul, enlighten your mind, and empower your faith.
That's exactly what they'll do. Thank you, Daniel.
That's cool. Did you come up with that, or did you read it out there? Where'd you get that?
No, it's the soundbite.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
That's kind of their motto.
But to those of you all that are listening to us for the first time, we've been doing this for 4 years. We've got a little over 100 episodes in our back catalog. So if we reference an old catalog like we did with Steve Higginbotham, that was in season 3, I believe. Go back and check that out. We've got 100 episodes there, bunch of topics. And always, we'll mention it again at the end, but if you have a topic you'd like us to discuss, just write into us. Send me an email. I check the email, and we'll answer it on the air, so to speak. Or we could do, yes.
Yeah, I mean, send a carrier pigeon if you can figure out how. That would be really interesting. But on the election, I have voted in every election I've been eligible to in my adult life, and I'm very thankful for the right to vote that we have in our country. But one thing that, because we have the blessing of living in a democracy or a representative republic or whatever, we may overestimate our own influence, our own level of control. Even though we live in a democracy, God ultimately is still the one that is in control. Daniel chapter 2, verse 21 says, He changes the times and the seasons. He removes kings and raises up kings. In Acts chapter 17, verse 26 says, And He made from one man every nation of mankind to live on all the face of the earth, having determined their appointed times and the boundaries of their habitation. You remember when Jesus was standing before Pilate. Again, I referenced that scene earlier. Well, later in the scene in John chapter 19, verses 10 and 11, Pilate is frustrated that Jesus is not answering him, and he says to Jesus, You do not speak to me? Do you not know that I have authority to release you and I have authority to crucify you? And Jesus answered, You would have no authority over me unless it had been given to you from above. For this reason, he who delivered me to you has the greater sin. So God is still in control of the world, and I think providentially working to control nations as well. And so vote, and encourage other people to vote the way that you think is the godly way to vote. But the more important thing you can do is pray. Be praying for our country, be praying for our leaders, even if the politicians that you didn't like, the ones you didn't vote for, even if they get elected, keep praying for them and for the good of our community.
I mean, and you talk about basically how you respond to loss or win,
what if your guy or girl, your candidate, what if they don't win? Then what?
Yeah, how will you respond to others and those around you? And for me, like kind of more local, personal level in our little community, the alcohol issue. Whether we live in rural Kentucky, small town USA, and we now in our community, alcohol is sold at every place you can buy a soft drink, restaurant, gas stations, big box, little box stores, I guess that's what they're called. But you can buy whatever you want. But I can remember just in the last 15 years or so that that wasn't the case. So there was a movement to make that happen. And so I feel like that people who are against alcohol, we went 0-2. In the last 20 years, we went 0-2. Those are two big losses because it's here and it's not going anywhere. So that's helped me grow to am I going to vilify somebody? No. How am I going to treat those? They didn't, like you said, it made me realize that my control or my influence is probably overrated, but I can only control me and how I behave and how I act and use those challenging times for good. That, we didn't go out and,
well, maybe
do graffiti on some restaurant because they're selling alcohol now. That's the wrong thing to do.
Well, maybe your influence is overrated, but it's not nothing.
Sure.
You have some influence there, so use what influence you do have for the things God would have you to use them for.
That's right.
And pray for those. And I'm with the alcohol. That's obviously something that, unfortunately, I've systematically seems like I've watched people who really push for that in our community struggle financially and with their health. And I'm not gloating, but I'm just saying that try to pray for those people, and hopefully that they'll realize that.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up.
That wasn't the way.
This is. Anytime you hear a sermon or a talk or an article or a podcast about this topic with politics and religion, 1 Timothy 2 verses 1-3 are brought up. And I won't read the whole thing, but I'll read the first verse, 1 Timothy 2 verse 1. First of all, then, I urge that supplications, prayers, intercessions, and thanksgiving be made for all people. Verse 2. For kings and all who are in high positions, that we may lead a peaceful and quiet life, godly and dignified in every way. I said I wasn't going to read all of it, but I'm going to keep going.
Go ahead.
Joe, you're the producer. Come on.
That's true. This is good, and it's pleasing in the sight of God our Savior, who desires all people to be saved and come to the knowledge of the truth. Paul's telling us to pray for our leaders and kings and what we don't have kings in our country. But pray for the politicians.
Right.
Well, the king that was when he wrote this was Nero, right? Who, I'm sure everybody knows out there, Nero's got quite the reputation.
Horrible.
Not a good guy.
No.
It's been rumored that he'd light Christians on fire to illuminate his gardens. I wasn't there, but that's what they say. So if Paul's praying for Nero, if our candidate loses, we can still pray for them, still want the best for them, still pray that God will lead through them.
Right. Yeah. That may even make it more important that we pray for them. And, keeping the fact that God is in control doesn't guarantee that things are going to go well for America. His purposes are going to be served, but he has not promised a bright and glorious future for America. And so just the fact that God is in control doesn't necessarily mean we can feel apathetic or overconfident. Those are different feelings, but that we can assume America's future is great and always will be. But our loyalty is to Jesus anyway. We can't get through this conversation without spending some time with Romans 13. And that's so let's go ahead and look at it there. Again, as you mentioned, Nero. This is who is the emperor as Paul writes this. He says, every person, verse 1, is to be in subjection to the governing authorities. He's talking about the secular government here. For there is no authority except from God, and those which exist are established by God. Therefore, whoever resists authority has opposed the ordinance of God, and they will have those who have opposed will receive condemnation upon themselves. For rulers are not a cause of fear for good behavior, but for evil. Do you want to have no fear of authority? Do what is good, you'll have praise from the same. For it is a minister of God to you for good. But if you do what is evil, be afraid, for it does not bear the sword for nothing. For it is a minister, the government, is a minister of God, on an avenger who brings wrath on the one who practices evil. Therefore, it's necessary to be in subjection, not only because of wrath, but also for conscience sake. For because of this, you also pay taxes, for rulers are servants of God, devoting themselves to this very thing. Render to all, which is where I want to get to, verse 7, render to all what is due to them. Tax to whom tax is due, custom to whom custom, fear to whom fear, honor to whom honor. So, he didn't just say, if your candidate wins, give them honor. He didn't just say, if your candidate wins, then respect that authority because they're the duly elected candidate. Whoever is in that office as having authority over the country and going down the hierarchy, Christians ought to give honor and respect to the office. Even if we can't respect the person in the office, even if Nero becomes president or Domitian or Caligula, one of those terrible Romans are revived and they become president and they're awful and it's the second coming of them, we still need to be subject to them and treat them with honor. And it really bothers me that so many of my brethren are out there on social media or just in conversation, but out in public, and they treat the president of the United States, or they treat the office holder, further down, whatever, with such verbal contempt and disrespect and mockery, and just ways that are not Christ-like.
They use the social media. It's kind of like their personal crusade to wreck somebody.
Yeah.
I think you're right. But also, this is not something new to us.
No.
We were doing this back to King George hundreds of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's just a little more pronounced now. People are a little more brave behind the keyboard warrior types, With one click, you can put an insult to somebody on your social media instead of writing King George a letter and dealing with the repercussions of that.
I don't get offended when you post stuff about me.
I don't ever post anything about you. I'm going to post that picture you just sent me a second ago.
Oh, it's out there.
Well, believe it or not, guys, that's about our time. Is there anything else? We got just a couple of minutes, or we can wrap it up a little early.
Well, we probably should mention the exception. We were just talking about how you're supposed to be subject to the government. You're supposed to obey them. We're not supposed to be rebelling against the government, leading these uprisings, things like that. That's not what a Christian should be engaged in. But there is the exception of Acts chapter 5, verse 28, where Peter responds there saying, or he's told, we gave you strict orders not to continue teaching in this name, Jesus, and yet you have filled Jerusalem with your teaching and intend to bring this man's blood upon us. But Peter and the apostles said, we must obey God rather than man. So our obligation to submit to any authority, including government authorities, is secondary to our obligation to obey God. So where there's a conflict there, and if that secular authority is trying to get us to do something that violates the plain teachings of Jesus, then we have to abstain from obeying that instruction.
I just would like to share this to dovetail off what Daniel just said, if you don't mind. I had an opportunity a few years ago to submit an article, to our bulletin. And when I do those, when it's my month, I try to write something that's timely and to encourage all of us and to get us on the front end of something. And I think I'd written this maybe just actually November 7th, 2023. And so I'd like to share not don't think of me being narcissistic by reading from my own article.
Oh, we think that
But
anyhow. It's okay.
I
Go
hope
ahead.
not. Well, don't post about it at least. But I referenced Matthew, and it was just simply called, my article just simply called Election Day. Matthew chapter 13, verses 44 through 45 says, "Again, the kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field, which a man found and hid, and for joy over it he goes and sells all that he has and buys that field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant seeking beautiful pearls." And then I just followed that with friends and family. What awaits us far outweighs and outshines any political race or political party we are connected to. We all get spirited from time to time, but may we never disgust God or offend anyone because of the energy we bring when it comes to politics. And I just thought that kind of fit with something that Daniel had kind of plugged in there, and that we just reaffirm our citizenship, God's sovereignty, and refocus what our primary mission is to serve Christ and to be an ambassador of Christ, and we're all going to engage, and we should, but we just need to be cautious and have an eye on heaven.
So this episode is going to be entitled Politics and Religion, but I guess the crux of it is that don't let a candidate be your Lord and Savior.
Mm-hmm.
Let Jesus be that. Fair enough?
That's well said.
Okay.
That's well said. I don't have a
Thanks.
mic, but I can drop my pen.
Yeah, there you go.
Good.
And it goes back to Colossians 3:17. Whatever you do in word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord. So if you vote, do it to the glory of God. If you abstain from voting, do it to the glory of God. If you share your views with other people, do it to the glory of God. If you don't, do it to the glory of God. Whatever.
If you're angry about the way I voted, say a little prayer, take a deep breath, and don't engage. Just let it. It's okay to disagree sometimes.
It is okay.
And there's definitely things. I mean, if you ask me personally, I will tell you my views and my part. I don't mind.
Right.
But we got to remember, we've got a large audience out there on social media, in the community. People know us. No, I mean, not just us.
I know Joe.
But I mean us, the kingdom.
Right.
They know us. Wear that badge first.
Yeah.
And it's tough. I mean, I don't think between the three of us we can answer all the political questions, and not everybody's going to agree. But just since you kind of gave your personal opinion, my approach is I'm, from a social media standpoint and even from an outspoken standpoint, I'm going to engage my community, but I'm not going to share my politics, if that makes sense. I'm just not, because I don't. As a citizen of this country, that's a right I have, is I don't have to share.
It's a little different if you are the politician.
Yeah.
And we're not encouraging Christians to stay out of politics. We've actually, especially Daniel knows a few in politicians that
Daniel's a bigwig. He's got
is.
connection all the way to
I'm not a bigwig.
to D.C.
There was a thing going around a while ago where people were getting AI to look at their social media
that's scary.
and roast them.
You're right.
Like,
that's something else.
Did you see any of that?
Yeah.
I did. It's hilarious.
It is hilarious. But that would be interesting to I don't know if you get AI to do it, or self-scout, get a friend to scout, go back and look at your social media from the past 6 months or whatever time period. What would somebody know about you based on what you're putting out there? Are they going to know your strong political affiliations, or are they going to know you're a Christian? Are they going to know your favorite sports team, or your favorite band, or your favorite whatever? What will they know about you from what you're putting out there in the world?
That's another. You just gave another reason why that for me, and I'm talking about me. I'm not representing. My opinion does not represent the Soul Training or Big Show Joe, chief producer and engineer, or Daniel, the pilot. I'm just that's
Is this
another
our pilot episode.
It is, but you're right. Isn't it great? But Daniel is right in the fact that I'm a little cautious because of things like AI and because of I'm using an old term, but photoshopping and all those things that people can snatch your information and twist you to represent something that really doesn't review. So for me, that's another reason why I'm going to engage locally and I'm going to engage my community and government and my work and all those things, but I'm not going to share my politics publicly like that. I'm just not. That's just my personal opinion, and that's one of the reasons, not the only, but one of the reasons.
Well, and that's
right there.
you're talking about something that we ought to treat shocking things, especially that we see or hear news items, with a degree of skepticism because of AI and how all those sorts of things makes you feel like Pilate. What is truth?
If somebody wants to, sabotage me with AI, I want them to know that I stand for Christ on social media versus, like Joe said, a politician. So that's but I want to do my politics, locally at street corner, helping people, serving people. Hey, let's have a Bible study, Joe. What ministry can we be a part of?
Bombard people on the street corner with your politics?
No, with Bible studies, with discipleship.
Okay, well, that's not what I heard, but okay.
So Joe's giving us the wrap-up signal. But so we want to thank you, dear listener, for letting us be a part of your spiritual diet, especially our new listeners that are coming to us through the Light Network. This may be a one and done. The Light Network may listen to this and be like, okay, we've made a mistake. But we look forward to being engaged through this medium for some time to come. And we want to thank the elders at the South Crane Street Church of Christ for making soul training possible. So on behalf of Alan and Joe, I'm Daniel. Until next time, keep soul training.
We've got soul training. Time to practice what you preach. Ooh, yeah. Yes, we do. We've got soul training.
To learn more, you can email us at soultrainingpodcast@gmail.com, or you can write to us, P.O. Box 503, Glasgow, Kentucky, 42142. That's Soul Training.